Morgana, very good. Yes, like mirages of water, or mirages of like an oasis, or toy guns, right? I mean, like a toy gun appearing to be, I mean, a lot of bank robbers got away with that because of that wrong consciousness. You know, a toy gun being perceived to be a real gun. So the toy gun is not a real gun, but the I consciousness, or whichever other consciousness, perceives that this toy gun is a real gun. So the toy gun being a real gun, that doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Yeah. So in that moment, it's a wrong consciousness because its object of engagement doesn't exist. Okay? And so, wrong consciousness, why is that a problem? I mean, actually, well, in a bank robbery, in the case of a bank robbery, it's a problem. I mean, if you're the owner of a bank, you're really in trouble if you get fooled by that. And of course, there's other examples of like I consciousnesses that, you know, the traffic light that's actually red, we hold it to be green. Very dangerous. Or there's glass, broken glass on the floor, and we think the floor is green. I mean, pretty dangerous. But from a Buddhist perspective, those are dangerous. Those wrong consciousnesses are dangerous because, of course, our mind, our experiencing mind, it gets us to do things. If we think, okay, there's the traffic light is green, it gets us to go. It motivates us, or it's responsible for another mind to kind of order us or control the movement. And so we're in trouble. And from a Buddhist perspective, there's much worse than that. Wrong consciousnesses are real trouble. And we have quite a few of them. We have quite a few wrong consciousnesses that cause us a lot of problems and difficulties. So there's something about certain awarenesses, because their objects don't exist, and we nevertheless hold them to exist, we get into trouble. I think in the everyday life it doesn't make sense. I mean, just the green traffic light, the gun, and so forth. We can see how not perceiving what is there gives us problems. But there's deeper levels of that. So the deepest level, actually, is a mind that is called, and I hate that word, ignorance. Ignorance is not a good term. It's been translated, the Tibetan word dingensin or marikpa has been translated as ignorance. But actually, the word really translates as not knowing, not perceiving, misperceiving. The Tibetan word, the much better translation is misperceiving. I use the word ignorance in this text because everyone uses it all the time. So if I start using different vocabulary, you just get more confused if you do the readings, like read other books. But actually, it's misperception. So, not perceiving what is there is a real problem. So the ignorance or the misperception, there's different misperceptions. Misperception of perceiving that which is actually impermanent, changing moment by moment to be permanent. So it happens in relationships all the time. Oh, it's always going to last. Oh, we're so much in love, it's always going to be like that. What a mistake. I mean, if it was like that, fine, great, you know, enjoy it. But the problem is, well, that's not reality. We actually know that to some degree, but there is an awareness in our continuum that arises and that perceives things to be always the same. Right? We want them to be always the same, and therefore we hold on to them too. Okay, so we hold on to things as being permanent. So this is something very important. I usually try to talk about this right from the beginning because the word permanent and impermanent. These are very, very important concepts in Buddhism. Permanence and impermanence. Okay. It does not mean permanent, does not mean eternal. If you have a sense of permanent being eternal, get rid of that sense. Try and think differently. Permanent actually is defined as that which changes moment by moment. Something that changes moment by moment. That is, sorry, impermanent. Impermanent is defined as that which changes moment by moment. Whereas permanent is that which does not change moment by moment. Okay. So, changing moment by moment. Changing moment by moment also doesn't mean changing moment by moment into something totally different. Like, for example, this cup does not become a non-cup a moment later. But it changes moment by moment. Does anyone disagree? Does this change moment by moment? What changes moment by moment? What exactly changes? The atoms, the subtle atoms. On a very subtle level, the atoms of this cup, I mean, now it's, I mean, that's the great advantage, being a Buddhist and having learned about physics, having learned about molecular physics. I mean, the people in the past didn't have that advantage. We know that this is made out of little atoms and they're changing. It never stands still. So this cup is very impermanent. I shouldn't even say very impermanent. I mean, it's impermanent. It changes all the time, right? My body, changing all the time. It doesn't last, right? I mean, the fact I grow older, I mean, that's a kind of course I kind of change. That's the one I'm aware of, right? Look at pictures of me, I think, 10 years ago. Quite different, okay? But the only reason I do look different from one year to the next, from, you know, from today until 10 years ago or 10 years in the future, is because I change moment by moment. It's only possible that, it's not like suddenly it's like, whoop, 10 years old. Oh, that'd be awful, actually. Wake up in the morning, oh no, one of those aging days. No, it's very, very slow. And why? And we're not aware of it, but it's actually happening every moment. Our mind's changing all the time, every moment. It's always changing. So phenomena are always changing. The phenomena around us. But we don't want them to. And we kind of, the stronger our emotions towards things, and this is something you need to learn to recognize. It's not that you're actually sitting there, no, it's not going to change. This kind of coarse, strong mind that you're very aware of. No, it slips you. I mean, you're not necessarily aware of. This misperception I talk about can be so subtle. It's like there for a split second, but it totally controls you. I know from my own experience. Every now and then I get a sense, it's like, it's not going to change. It's going to last. This relationship will last. And then I'm so surprised when it's not. Right? I'm so surprised, oh my God. So like everything is changing all the time, but in our mind we concretize. Like we make it solid and concrete. Watch your mind doing it all the time. This cup, it seems very solid, right? And if I like this cup, I really perceive this to be permanent. I want this to last. And in my mind, it's kind of a lasting thing. And when I'm frustrated with things, it's the same thing. I never change. I'm always the same. I make the same mistakes. I never make the same mistakes. I make similar mistakes. Because whatever I've done at some point, I never do exactly the same thing again. It's impossible. It seems that way, but it's never exactly the same. Right? It's just because we have this, we don't look closely, we don't look close enough. So we perceive that which is impermanent to be permanent. And we perceive phenomena to exist in an objective way, out there. I'm not saying our eye consciousness does that. I'm not saying all consciousnesses are misperceptions, but there are quite a few misperceptions. There's some misperceptions and they control us. They make us perceive things in the way in which they don't exist. And so this is important. From a Buddhist perspective, our problem is not because we're not good people. We just can't help it. We just don't perceive what's actually there. We're trapped by these misperceptions. There's so many of them. So this is not part of this course. This will be more part of the third course about what we misperceive, what is actually there. But let me explain something that's very easy to understand. Misperceptions are misperceptions such as anger. I think we all know anger. Anyone who's never been angry? Impossible. I mean, it's one of the mental states that we all have experienced, and it's a very wrong consciousness. Its object doesn't exist. So this is again something I would like you to, right now, bring a time back when we were angry. I'm not saying angry to the degree we wanted to shoot the guy or whatever. No, but angry when it was like resentment or like dislike, or it just wasn't something right. So anger doesn't have to be something that strong, but just this, and it's usually people we're very close to, unfortunately, right? I mean, ones we feel safe with, the other ones we really get angry with. And in that moment when anger arises, what is the appearing object? What's the object of engagement? So here, again, this is being, as part of this investigation, as this part of the science of the mind. So this is what we're being taught. What appears to the mind? What is the object of engagement? So, I said, a wrong consciousness is that whose object of engagement does not exist. Okay? So let's look at the anger. What does the anger perceive? If I'm angry, and let's try to be really honest here. If I'm angry with something, in that moment, I don't perceive what's there. I don't perceive what's there. And scientists, and Thomas Dalai Lama has been talking about this specific case many times just in the past. He brings up that example all the time, or this situation. He says he's talked to a scientist who says every time we get angry, the anger that arises is 90% a projection of what is there. So these are scientists, okay? And I think we trust scientists a lot, you know, being brought up in the 21st century. But what they say, it accords exactly with what the Buddha explained, well, 2,600 years ago. Okay? The idea that when we are angry with someone, our view is distorted. We don't perceive what's there. So if we take to mind the anger, usually, well, if we take another person, even the person we usually love, but that's the tricky thing, because our minds come and go, come and go, come and go. There's different minds at different times. So even though ordinarily we love someone, in the moment when anger is there, we perceive them differently. So let's take a person. There's someone we get angry with. So what happens actually? We perceive, well, that's usually we get angry with someone for a reason. Whether that's a correct reason, that's a different matter. But there's a reason. There's some quality that we don't like. Something they have done. Something they have said. And in that moment, that negativity gets blown up. Either we exaggerate what's there, or we kind of make it up. So we take a situation, I mean, anger can be focused on anything, on a situation, on a person, on anything. I mean, think back. Whatever it is makes us angry, we blow up that negativity. We exaggerate it, or we totally superimpose it. We see something that the other person actually doesn't have. Right? Sounds familiar? Right? From our own experience. And it's subtle, it's not that coarse, it's not like consciously kind of going, oh, they have a much bigger nose than ordinarily, and that's why they're really... No, it's not like that. It's much more subtle. There's a sense, we can't see anything positive. Try to think, in the moment you're angry, oh, actually they're a really good cook, or they're really kind. You don't even want to. I mean, otherwise your anger goes. If we look at the whole picture, we see the whole picture, the good and the bad together, the anger goes. So in order for the anger to stay, we need to totally ignore, that anger needs to totally ignore the positive side of that person, or the positive side of that situation, right? So like, I mean, I'm not saying like there's anger and then we can kind of, it flips. I'm not saying that we're angry all the time, then it flips, and then there's anger, and then it flips. But really, when there's just really strong anger, when nothing else has any space, we can only see the negative. So, what is the object of engagement? A person's exaggerated or even made up negative qualities. It's a wrong consciousness. And then take attachment. It makes you much better. I like the attachment even more. When we're infatuated with someone. I mean, that's the strongest type of attachment. When we're in love with someone, especially in the beginning. Oh, we see these things they may not even have. We wish they had them, right? We wish they had them. And then slowly we kind of, because this guy and, you know, that has them looks similar, so maybe they have them too. I mean, just how the mind works. We wish for them to be there, those qualities. So we either make them up or we exaggerate them. And that's all we look at. So when desire or attachment arises, we don't see the person for what they are, for who they are. We take one quality, and they have that characteristic, possibly, unless we totally make it up, but they may have that characteristic, and we only focus on that. So it's a wrong consciousness. It doesn't see phenomena for what they are. And that's why we have problems. I mean, if that was all there was, okay, we wouldn't have the kind of problems that we experience now, but because we have wrong expectations, we don't see what's actually there, we react in an unrealistic way, and we're disappointed, and suffering arises. So it's really not, so I mean, there's also something, of course, out there, but the main point is a wrong perception. Wrong consciousness. What about arrogance? I mean, we've all, at some point or another, we experience arrogance. Okay? Every now and then, I'm not saying like it's always there, but every now and then, it's an exaggerated sense of our good qualities. And how painful it is when we're proven wrong. When we come to the understanding, oh my God. You know, if we didn't have that sense of, like, exaggerated sense of who we are, we wouldn't suffer in that way. So, from a Buddhist perspective, it's so important to understand this part of consciousness when the object of engagement doesn't exist. So the first step is to recognize it. It's very hard to, right from the beginning, to overcome anger and attachment. I mean, no one expects that, but to reduce it slowly. And how can we reduce it? Understand it first. I mean, oftentimes, I know from my own anger, my own attachment, it happens, it's like long gone and I become aware of it. Oh my God, for half an hour I've just been angry. Wow. And then the lunch bell goes and suddenly I become aware. And then my hunger takes over and I forget being angry. But suddenly I become aware for half an hour I've been angry. Right? And I've been so unhappy and I've, you know, all the things I did. And from a Buddhist perspective, well, I created a lot of negative energy and negative karma, negative mental actions that have a consequence in the future. And who knows what I said and who knows what I did to that person out of anger. So that's why it's so important. The first step is to understand this. Really to look inwards and see, how does this work with my own mind? Catch this in the process. And start looking. Okay? So whatever really happens there, could never put it into words. It's totally beyond words. It's so full. There's so much happening in every moment. And anger, you know, when it arises, each moment is so unique and there's so many causes that come together. Nevertheless, we get some understanding. Oh, object of engagement. What is the object of engagement? What is my focal object? What's the object I'm angry with? And how have I exaggerated? It's so interesting. It's much better than any movie to just watch your own mind. It never ends. It's like serials that always go on. There's always something else. And the closer you look, the more you see it's always different. It's like anything. When we don't look, it seems always the same, and we don't even know, and it's like we are being controlled by it. The first step to get more control, to get a better sense, well, first, get a better sense is to recognize it. So Buddhism was all about that. When we talk about mindfulness, becoming mindful, becoming aware of what we are, who we are, well, we need to understand what to look at first. So then the object of engagement is not some weird word that we can hardly spell or actually, say. It's like, what a long word, how difficult, what does it mean? It actually just means the main object that we hold. So, and if it's non-existent, we're in trouble. There's different ways we can be in trouble, but these examples, I hope, make it a little bit clearer how exaggerating what's actually there, not perceiving things for what they are, they get us in a lot of trouble. Whereas correct consciousnesses, let's look at a correct consciousness. What about love as opposed to anger? I'm not saying attachment. I love you doesn't necessarily mean real love, not from a Buddhist perspective. What is love? What's the definition of love?
Wanting another person to be happy.
Very good. Who said that? That was quick. Wanting for another person to be happy, exactly. But it's like seeing the other person with, their good and bad qualities and just being accepting of those and wanting them sincerely to be happy. And when we say we love someone, it's usually not saying that we don't have that. But then it's like, I love them, I want them to be happy. I want him or her to make me happy. It's like this changing. I want something. Oh, I can give. So it keeps changing. So there's times when it's pure love, and that's the one we should cultivate. Whereas the times when there's like, oh, I want him or her to give me, well, that's when pain starts, when problems arise. So love is a mind that is not mistaken, because it sees the thing for what it is. Seeing that the other person has problems, has good sides, has negative sides, and just wanting them sincerely to be happy. No wrong consciousness. Object of engagement exists. So, these are all emotional states. Love, compassion, anger, attachment. They're all emotions. Emotions in the sense that one wants something. It's usually like a wanting kind of mind. Anger, want to harm them. Attachment, want to have it. Love, want them to be happy. Compassion, want them to be free from suffering. All wanting. But one is, love and compassion are the ones that are realistic. They want something that is realistic. It's based on the object of engagement. That which we hold exists. Whereas attachment and anger, the object of engagement doesn't exist. It's unrealistic. It wants something that actually isn't there. It wants to harm something that actually wasn't there in the first place. Does that make sense? Right? So this, recognizing this, that's the whole purpose of this exercise. So if you understand there's wrong consciousnesses, there's right consciousnesses, well, let's try and identify them. Every time anger arises, wonderful, great opportunity to recognize a wrong consciousness. Yeah? So of course I'm not saying, well, we'll be angry because that's really part of this exercise. No, but it happens and it will happen, and it, you know, it's unlikely that we've overcome our anger. So a great opportunity to look at it. Okay? Attachment. Look at the attachment. Watch it. Where's the object of engagement? Does it really exist or not? Okay. So this is one category of the mind. How long do we have?
I think 30, I think.
Until 10, 9:30, 9:30. Okay, we're good with time. Okay. So we have this category of wrong consciousnesses and correct consciousnesses. Okay. So I've given you some examples. But the main wrong consciousness. So we've basically seen that here wrong consciousnesses are always consciousnesses that exaggerate. Okay? They're consciousnesses that exaggerate. So far I've only discussed consciousnesses that exaggerate. To get back a little bit to the misperception, the ignorance, which is so important to understand. So basically when we talk in the Buddhist context, when we try to understand the mind, make this distinction between wrong and right consciousnesses, or correct consciousnesses. Better word, a wrong consciousness and a correct consciousness. So the reason is, one of the main reasons is to understand misperception. So I've given you some explanation in here, which will be given further down the line, because we talk about what's called mental factors, mind and mental factors. So there'll be more explanation down the line. But just to say a little bit more about the misperception of reality, because that's so extremely important. The misperception of perceiving phenomena to exist in a way in which they don't exist, and which is actually the root cause for our anger, our attachment, arrogance, all these other wrong consciousnesses that are induced by this one misperception. And then these wrong consciousnesses, such as anger and attachment, they lead to actions, kind of diluted. They're diluted actions because the cause is an exaggerated mind. It was induced by an exaggerated mind, and therefore it becomes contaminated. It's a bit like, I always think of it like baking a cake with a rotten egg. The other ingredients are fine. There's nothing wrong with the other ingredients, but the egg is rotten, well, end of a good cake. So likewise, we have a lot of positive states of mind, a lot of positive consciousnesses. I mean, we're not ignorant in the sense like, we can perceive this is a cup, this is a table, we can do things, we can communicate. We're intelligent people. But there's this one rotten egg. There's this one misperception of reality that sneaks in every now and then, and it colors all our experiences. What a shame. We could have such a great cake. Honestly, I mean, we could have things could be so wonderful, and we could be so content and happy, and that sneaks in all the time. It's very subtle, oftentimes we're not aware of it. If I talk about this, for some of you it's like, what? Never heard about that before, right? But we get a sense that here's my mind, and out there's the world. And they kind of exist independent of each other, right? We have the sense that what I perceive, it's out there. It's really over there, it's objectively over there, it's concrete, it's unchanging. Right? We get a sense that, I mean, this cup definitely doesn't seem to be changing. I mean, the fact that it cannot appear to, that my eye consciousness is not aware that this cup is changing moment by moment, that's a result of, for such a long time, we perceive this to be solid and concrete. Right? So there's a sense that we all perceive the same. I think we all have a sense. I'm not really talking about, oh yeah, if we discuss it and we kind of use our more coarser intellectual mind, we can all understand, well, actually, we don't perceive the same, but we still get a sense that we all perceive the same person here. But of course, actually, each one of you have a totally unique perception. There's not one of you who perceives the same thing. Because you're all in different places, and you all perceive something slightly different. I mean, you see something that I have never seen. My own face. I have never seen my own face, so please don't say the reflection of the face in a mirror is my face. And the photograph certainly is not my face. So I've never seen my own face. So you see something and I don't see. And that's the case for each one of you. I mean, you know, I look at you, I see something you've never seen. So everyone has a very unique perception of reality. So we don't really see something, I mean, we don't see the same thing. None of us see the same thing. Just, I mean, it's maybe very subtle differences, but subtle difference is still a difference. Right? Okay. So, is there really an objective cup out there? Or is there a summary of all the cups that each one of you perceive? Well, from a Buddhist perspective, there's no cup other than each one of you perceive. There is no other cup. But that's not how it appears. To me, it seems there's this cup over there, waiting to be discovered. Right? I can touch it, I can smell it, I can drink from it, and so forth. I have a sense there's an objective cup waiting to reveal itself. That's a total illusion. And if we really think about how our consciousnesses work, it gets so intricate. I mean, like our eye consciousness. What is it? It's actually just particles. You know, the light, whatever it is, I mean, well, some people say it's energy, some people say light is particles. But, I mean, whatever it is, it's like a certain light. There's certain external factors that allow our eye consciousness to perceive this. It's just an appearance. I mean, it's because we have these eyes. It's because of whatever makes up our eyes, because of this brain, that we perceive this. If we didn't have those eyes, we didn't have this brain, we wouldn't perceive this. If it was objectively out there, we wouldn't need those eyes and those brains to perceive this. What about sound? Sound is even more fascinating. What is sound? How is sound produced? And Buddha was great about this. 2,600 years ago, he explained just that. It's particles. You know, it's like my voice cord, my vocal cord vibrates, and particles are being pushed. You know, like whatever particles are being pushed, and then these particles are being pushed, and it enters my eardrum, and now it's being vibrated. It passes on the information to my brain, and an ear consciousness arises. Right? I mean, there's really no sound out there, is there? It's my experience of sound, and that's it. There's no external objective sound. That's not how it appears. Right? And this is where our main mistake lies. As if there was an objective world out there. No. There's no objective world. It's just all in the mind. And I'm not talking mind only in the mind. But it's very close to the mind only. Maybe you're surprised maybe how the highest philosophical view, the one that we accept, is actually much closer to the mind only than one may assume. Okay? But nevertheless, I mean, let's leave out the mind only school. But the point is here, what we perceive, it's because we have this mind, phenomena exist. So I think with this explanation, it becomes a little closer, we come a little bit closer to understanding how important it is to understand the mind. It's because we have a mind, we experience things. Right? Okay, so therefore, having said that, the objects that we describe, these objects don't exist out there. They don't exist objectively, from their own side, kind of waiting to be discovered, but they still appear that way. So, if we actively apprehend them to be that way, we have a wrong consciousness. Okay? So, at times we do that. At times we actively apprehend phenomena to exist out there, objectively. But, even when we don't do that, when we just move around, when we just walk around, they still appear to us to exist that way. Does that make sense? So we're a bit like someone being fooled by an optical illusion. Every now and then, we perceive the reflection of the face of the mirror to be the face. But then at other times, we move around and it just merely appears to be that way. So the same is true for our perception of reality. When I go around and I see things, I hear things, I smell things, I taste them, they always appear. I mean, the cup appears, the cup itself also appears, but it appears mixed with this appearance of objective existence. Okay? And then, with my ear consciousness, sounds that I hear, they appear to be out there, existing from their own side. existing independently, independent of the mind, waiting to reveal itself. Taste, smells, the same thing. Okay. But then with the mental consciousness, and this will be explained a little bit further down, we also sometimes actively apprehend that to be the case. Then we have a wrong consciousness. So can you see the difference between those two? Where there's only a mistake with respect to the appearance, and there's a mistake with respect to the object of engagement. Does that make sense? The difference between those two? Being mistaken. So let's take the example again. The example of an eye consciousness perceiving the reflection of a face, perceiving a reflection of a face in a mirror. Is that a correct consciousness or wrong consciousness? An eye consciousness that perceives a reflection of a face in a mirror.
Correct.
That's correct, because the reflection of the face in a mirror exists. Then there's an eye consciousness that apprehends the reflection of the face in the mirror to be a face. That's a wrong consciousness. Okay. So, the eye consciousness, in both eye consciousnesses, taking both eye consciousnesses, one is a wrong consciousness and one is a correct consciousness. But both are mistaken. Both are mistaken. So there's a difference between being wrong and mistaken. Wrong is trouble. Wrong means to actually hold something to be in a certain way. Mistaken doesn't necessarily mean that. Mistaken can mean it just appears that way, but we don't hold it to be that way. So the eye consciousness that apprehends the reflection of a face in a mirror, right? Without apprehending that to be a real face. Okay? Just us, every morning. That eye consciousness that apprehends the reflection of the face in the mirror is mistaken because the reflection appears to be a face. So in terms of just that passive appearance, it's mistaken. But actively we don't hold it, so we're okay. It's mistaken, but it only has some mistaken aspect to it. It's actually correct consciousness, because being correct or not correct, the criterion is object of engagement. But the problem is that with respect to the appearance of objective, inherent, independent existence, all our consciousnesses are mistaken. All of them are. Which doesn't mean we cannot function very well. It doesn't mean we're not, it doesn't make us any worse. It's like we're still who we are. We can do things, we can drive, we can cook, we can, do everything we do. We work, we make money, and so forth. However, there is some slight mistaken appearance. And every now and then, when our emotions are very strong, not only do phenomena appear to be inherently existent, we hold them to be existent that way. Especially the I. I exist objectively over here. And my happiness exists inherently over there. And you're inherently different. You guys. It's me against the rest of the world. And I and others are inherently, objectively different. It's not just that we're different. No, we're really solidly different. Okay? So, sometimes when strong emotions, when I am in danger, there's a very strong sense of me existing in a way which is actually impossible. Of course, unfortunately, I can't go into this into so much detail. But anyway, if you get just this sense that there's a difference, that we can function very well because things just appear in a mistaken way. We can still function well. The problem arises when every now and then an actual misperception actively perceives you inherently, me inherently, objectively over there. And then it's an exaggerated, so what do? What does this misperception of reality do? It exaggerates what's there. It adds something. We don't exist independently, objectively. So we add something that's not there. And then that induces other states of mind that also exaggerate. Exaggerate the negative qualities. Exaggerate the beauty. Exaggerate the whatever, right? We are exaggerating because the root mind has been exaggerating, has added things that don't exist. Anyway, so this is where this is relevant. This is why the explanation of the mind, this specific explanation is so relevant. Okay, so this is one category. Correct consciousness and wrong consciousness. It's not explained in that order traditionally, but I felt that was the easiest to understand without giving you too much explanation. Because that's one of the challenges. With each category, it's almost like if I haven't explained that, then I can't give you this category. But if I then explain this, I also need to give you this category. So I was like thinking, I kept changing it. First I explained this category, then this category, then this category. And every time I felt, no, I need to explain this first. And since we have only limited time, I can't go back and forth all the time. So this I felt was easiest to explain. Correct consciousness, incorrect consciousness, or wrong consciousness. And the danger of those. Okay. So, having explained that, if you could please read this, if you do have the opportunity, just read through it again. Maybe some questions arise for the next class. Things that, I mean, as I'm not able to actually read through it, I may have left out things. It would be very helpful to go over it again, because just saying it once is not enough. Okay. All right. And then something we do, which is a very favorite kind of exercise, because now getting a better understanding, getting a better intellectual understanding of this. And I'm again saying, okay, intellectual, it shouldn't just stay intellectual, but to get a better sense of what I've just said. We then compare. Is this something that is merely a mistaken consciousness and not a wrong consciousness? Is there something that is a wrong consciousness but not mistaken? Is there something that is both? And is there something that is neither? Okay. Is there a consciousness that is mistaken but not wrong? Yes, please. Yes. Can you give an example? Go ahead. An example, and a mind that is mistaken but not wrong. Think again. Mistaken means appearance. There's a mistake with respect to the appearance. Wrong means there's a mistake the way it's held, the way it's engaged, the way it's apprehended. So is there a consciousness that is mistaken but not wrong? Because something appears to be in a way which is impossible. However, the mind doesn't hold that to be the case. Yeah.
The air we perceive as nothing, appears as nothing, but we know it's substance.
Okay, very good. So for us, the air appears to our consciousness. I mean, we don't have there's a sense there's nothing there, but we don't hold this to be nothingness, right? Okay, that's a good example. Something else. Everyday examples, anything. Yes.
And the sunset, that the sun is moving around.
Oh, very good. Very good. When the sun sets, it appears as if the sun is moving, but actually the earth is moving. So we don't hold that to be the case. Here we go. Very good examples. Other examples. Once you get going, then you remember more and more. Anything more? I mean, these are basically optical illusions. What about other illusions of ear consciousnesses, taste, and so forth? Smells. Oh, there's plenty of them. Ear consciousnesses. An ear consciousness that is mistaken but not wrong, yes.
Couldn't you have a mistaken identity, even though the object in itself does exist? I'm not going beyond exist. In other words, it's a correct apprehension, a correct awareness, but the identity is wrong. I think it's Susie standing there. It's really Jane. There is a person.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting, yeah. Okay, so you're saying that...
The appearance is...
Okay, I know what you're saying. So you're saying that, well, I think Susie is Jane, or whatever name you use. So Susie is Jane, but I'm not mistaken with regard to that being a person. Yeah, but that's not the point of the exercise. I mean, I'm giving you another example. We're wearing glasses that color everything in pink, right? So even though there's a wrong consciousness, or a mistaken consciousness, sorry, there's a mistaken, but I could actually have not just a mistaken appearance, I could hold everything to be pink. But that doesn't mean I cannot identify the shape of the object. Okay, I don't have to be like I'm walking on the road with these pink glasses. I forget I'm wearing pink glasses, and I'm thinking, oh my God, these stones are pink. That's a wrong consciousness. There's the object of engagement on the stones. However, I can still see stones. I can still see other things. But so, nevertheless, that's not the main object. For that mind, in that moment, is the pink street. So it doesn't mean that we cannot still do other things. It's not like we're totally helpless suddenly. We have to stop walking, or we're not able to later on say, "Oh, right, well that was a person, nevertheless." But in that moment, like perceiving Jane to be whichever name you use, so that is a wrong consciousness, mistaken identity, because I perceive Jane to be whatever, Diane or whatever, right? So that is a mistake of, that's an example of an I consciousness that is mistaken and a wrong consciousness. Because Jane appears to be Diane, and I also hold Jane to be Diane.
But what if I'm holding, not that it's Jane or this, that it's a person?
Then it's not a wrong consciousness.
Exactly. In other words, I have to then go into the level into which I choose to put the object, the category where.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each mind is different. She's absolutely right. If I just went, oh, that's a cushion, fine. That's not a problem. That's a cushion. There's an orange cushion. If I perceive this to be a cushion, I don't have a wrong consciousness. If I perceive this to be a blue cushion, well, then I have a wrong consciousness.
What?
A blue cushion. This is an orange cushion. If I perceive the orange cushion to be blue, if there's a wrong consciousness, and there's more explanation of why. I mean, there may be a fault with my eye consciousness. It may have to do, with the light that comes in. Whatever is the reason, but for some reason, there is a wrong consciousness. So just perceiving that to be a cushion, there's no wrong consciousness. But if I perceive this to be a blue consciousness, well, then I have a wrong consciousness. But my question was, an example for, let's say, an ear consciousness. There's an appearance of a sound that is mistaken, but I'm holding the sound correctly.
It's like I hear in the radio and I think it's someone inside the radio. And
Wait, mistaken but not wrong. Now your example was wrong, right? If you perceive the person to be an actual person.
no, I hear the radio.
You hear the radio. You perceive it to be a real person, but you don't hold it to be a real person. Is that what you're saying? Yes, sorry, then you're right, yes, absolutely. A classic example is an echo. The echo of a person's voice, right? We don't hold that echo to be the actual person, but it appears that way. Okay, is there an example of a wrong consciousness that is not mistaken? Is there an example of where we hold something to be this and that? I mean, holding X to be Y, but it doesn't appear that way. Well, let me know towards you. No, there isn't. There isn't. No, if you hold something to be so and so, it appears that way. Okay? If we hold the person in the radio to be an actual person, it also appears. So you see, this is also something that's stressed very much when we learn philosophy. This idea that when we really hold something to be the case, then it appears that way. Whereas the other way around, if something appears to be one way, we don't necessarily hold it to be that case. You see, there's a difference, right? So even though there may be some mistaken aspect, it's not always that I mean, the mind is not functioning. It's like wearing tinted glasses. We can very much walk around, be aware that's not the actual color of the street, and therefore not have a wrong consciousness. Okay? All right. Then, is there a consciousness that is neither mistaken nor wrong? Is there a consciousness that is neither mistaken nor wrong? I mean, not wrong, okay, we have lots, but also not mistaken.
Yeah, the Buddha mind.
There isn't?
Both.
The Buddha mind.
Oh, Buddha's mind. Very good, yes. But even a non-Buddha's mind, is there a mind that is not mistaken and not wrong, even in a sentient being's continuum?
Yes.
Yes. Which one?
Simple appearance. It's appearance of cup. It's not wrong.
Mistaken? It's not mistaken? It doesn't appear to exist from its own side objectively over there?
Well, if it's simply the perception, it does and not the inference of it being a cup. I don't necessarily, when I look at the altar, take out objectify each thing there.
No, not consciously. Not consciously. I'm not saying you do this consciously. She's saying when she looks at the altar, she doesn't objectify it. No, we don't hold it that way, but it still appears.
So it would appear correctly.
No. We would perceive it correctly. We perceive this to be an altar, right? We perceive this to be an altar. The problem is it appears. It appears to exist from its own side. You see, we aware of an altar, that's the object of engagement, sorry. And at the same time, the altar appears. Okay?
And it only exists as an altar because we decide that it's an altar. It's not, like...
But that's okay. I mean, it's an altar, we decide it's an altar or not, that's I mean, yeah, I absolutely agree.
But also our part of our awareness, part of our holding it,
okay.
The way that we hold it is aware that it exists as an altar because we say it's an altar.
What you're just saying is, you're simplifying it to a degree. It's like, you take into consideration other minds here, okay? So you say like, the reason this is an altar is because we decide to call this an altar. Absolutely, that's true, right? No disagreement on that. It's not like it's an objective altar. So, my eye consciousness is not aware that I call this altar because it's just an eye consciousness. Eye consciousness cannot think that way. So it's another consciousness. It's a different kind of mind that can go later and say, oh, my eye consciousness just perceived an altar. But of course it's only an altar because I decided to call it that. But when you explain this, it's all conscious and aware. It's kind of object of engagement, basically. Right? It's an object of engagement. Every time I'm aware of something, I'm conscious, I'm holding something, I'm talking about the object of engagement. So the eye consciousness perceives an altar. Altar is the object of engagement. Then my mental consciousness understanding, oh, this is only an altar because I called it so. So that being the fact that it's only an altar because I called it so, that's the object of engagement of that mental consciousness. No problem. So it's all conscious kind of object of engagement. I apprehended that. But it appears differently. It appears differently. So there's a difference between, again, the reflection in the face of a mirror. Or the sun, I like the sun. The sun setting. It appears that the sun is moving. I can't help that. I can't help that. I know that's not the case. Consciously I know that's not the case. Okay? So, here in the case of phenomena exist objectively. I may know that is not the case. I may actually, to some degree, understand that this is impossible, but it still appears. It still appears. Right? And if you check, if you become more aware, you can become aware how phenomena, it's like they're waiting to be discovered. Okay? There's no sense. I mean, my favorite example of what you just brought up, basically, the idea that, yeah, we're kind of conscious of it, but at the same time, my explanation that phenomena still appear that way. My favorite example is that of a woman who was born blind. She was born blind, and when after she had been, raised and had never known being able to see, she was cured of her blindness. So she was cured of her blindness, and she knew things around. She had been explained. She was able to touch things, so she knew what a cup was, what a table was, and so forth. Anyway, when she was cured, she took off her bandage, and she opened her eyes, and she said she didn't see anything. She didn't see anything because the only reason we do see things is because we've imputed. We've called this an altar again and again. And in the beginning, we just saw a blur of color and shape. And I mean, not even, we just saw different colors. But then slowly, and this will be explained further down the line, because of calling at things, then suddenly things start appearing. So she had to learn again, okay, so table is this. And then she started being able to crystallize this out. But it doesn't appear that way. To me, it appears like it's all there, it's all out there. It's not because I gave these the names, I imputed this. It seems it's just always been that way. Right? That's how it seems to me, honestly. Okay? I can consciously go, no, 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 it's not like that. But it still appears that way. Just as the face in the mirror always keeps appearing as the face in the mirror. Always appears as a face. Even though consciously I know that's not the case. That's what I mean. So this difference has to be clear. I mean, that we hold something or it appears something. Something appears. Anyway, let's leave this for now. This difference. So, but let me just, my original question. So, is there a mind in an ordinary, sentient beings, like non-Buddhas, like us, right? Is it possible to have a mind that is not mistaken with respect to that appearance?
No.
We're working on it.
We're working on it, yes, absolutely. And it's well, that's it. It's the mind that directly perceives, and we talk about this, and we'll explain, that directly perceives the lack of such objective existence. There is a mind, but that's the only one. There is a mind that can be trained. We can actually cultivate such a mind through cultivation, but that's why we learn this. If we don't understand wrong, incorrect, or wrong, mistaken, it is very hard to get to that kind of mind, but it's possible. Okay. So, this basically covers to some degree this explanation of a wrong and correct consciousness. Okay, so let's move on to the next category. And I've basically already talked about it, but now we look at it, I mentioned the terminology, but not really what it refers to. Sense consciousness and mental consciousness. Sense and mental consciousness. So we basically, if we talk about any kind of mind we have, any kind of mind that is right now active, it's either a sense consciousness or a mental consciousness. All right. Sense consciousness, mental consciousness. So sense consciousnesses are fivefold. There are 5 sense consciousnesses. What are they? Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body consciousness. All right. What do we need for an eye consciousness to arise?
Body. Functioning body.
Well, first of all, yes. Anything else? So she's saying we need intact senses and we need an object. Anything more?
The mind.
Yes. Okay, very good. That basically summarizes it. Okay, we need 3 causes, what they call conditions. 3 causes, conditions. Again, the words are really weird. We need 3 conditions. One is called observed object condition. It just means an object that is observed, that serves as the cause. All right, so it's this cup, for example, for an eye consciousness. If we didn't have that cup, we could not have an eye consciousness. If we didn't have shape and color, we could not have an eye consciousness. If we are in a room that is deprived of shape and color, we couldn't have an eye consciousness. Now, even a black room is shape and color, so it's actually impossible. But really, if we didn't have, shape and color. So shape and color are the 2, well, it's actually the one object. These are put together, but like shape and color are the main objects of an eye consciousness. And that's all an eye consciousness can actually perceive, shape and color. Nothing more. It actually can't. I mean, having something appearing to it and then being aware of that must be shape and color. Right? I mean, this object appearing and it holding it. Okay, ear consciousness, sound. Okay. So, it's funny because sometimes people explain sound to be the particles that move around and we try to draw sound. But actually, sound is only that which we can hear. It's only that which we can hear with our eye consciousness. So we draw sounds, we draw tastes, we make drawings of everything, sound waves and everything. But that's just a mental image because our eye consciousness is most dominant to illustrate this. But actually, it's that which we hear. That's sound, nothing else. Smell, taste, and so forth. So these are the causes for the sense consciousnesses. And they have to be there. They have to be there in the presence, somewhere in proximity. Okay? If they weren't nearby, we wouldn't be able to see them. With the eye consciousness, there can be some distance. That's all right. It can be reflected. With the sound, it can be some distance. But with the nose consciousness, the particles have to actually enter the nose. Tongue consciousness, obvious. Body consciousness. Right? Okay. So that's easy. It's not difficult to understand, but just for the sake of completion, let's just explain it. All right. What else do we need? So that's the observed object condition. We need a cause. We need something that produces the object, which is the external object. Absolutely. All right. So if we didn't have these external sounds and so forth, we could not have sense consciousnesses. Then we need what is called the empowering condition. Funny word, but never mind. The empowering condition, which is the physical. The physical, it's actually described in the scriptures, it's described as a subtle form in the eye. But I don't like that explanation. I think it's just, 2,600 years ago, the Buddha didn't have to teach science. It was just not the time, to introduce people to anything, but it was just a different kind of time. So instead of optical nerve and brain and so forth, he just had a subtle form in the eye. But actually there's more to it. It's not just the eye. I mean, we now know that there's this optical nerve, there's parts of the brain. If there's some brain damage, we may have a fully functioning eye, but we can't see. So all this is part of the eye sense power. Okay? So anything that is responsible, anything physical that's responsible for us at being able to see. Okay. So, and what is the last? That's the second condition. What's the last condition? A previous moment of consciousness. Right? It's a cause. A cause is something that precedes it. Does the cup that I perceive and my eye consciousness, do they exist at the same time? Does the cup that I perceive and my eye consciousness exist at the same time?
Yeah. The speed of light.
Yeah. I mean, don't even use the Buddhist terminology. Just, ordinary science. It takes a moment for the light to enter the eye, the information being passed on to the brain, and then the eye consciousness arises. So there's some time difference. Okay, so the cup that we perceive, there's no cup out there we perceive actually, because the moment I perceive it, it's already gone. Right? Okay, it's actually gone already. But never mind, it's its cause. So it precedes it. Okay, very good. Then what about the eye sense power? Does that precede, that fully functioning sense power, does that precede the eye consciousness, or does it exist at the same time? It precedes it. It's like a moment before it's active, and then it gives rise to the eye consciousness. Okay, so it's a cause, something that precedes it. What about the immediately preceding condition? The last one, that's number 3 in here, page 8. So observed object condition is clear, empowering condition is the physical, and the immediately preceding condition, so even though they're all immediately preceding conditions in that sense, but that's just what it's called, that is the previous moment of consciousness. Because if there was not a luminous knowing entity previously, we wouldn't suddenly have one. This last condition proves past and future lives. This previous condition we can use to, well, I don't know whether it proves it, I mean it depends on, but this is the Buddhist explanation for the existence of past and future lives. How? How is the immediately preceding condition a moment of consciousness preceding my perception? How is that the proof for past and future lives? Well, it's not that straightforward, but well, from a Buddhist perspective, okay, the mind is that entity. So I need to explain this, of course, it's something, we need to really do this in meditation. I can talk about this, but it's much more beneficial when we really get a sense of this entity of the mind that's just clarity and knowing. Okay, that experiencer. That is a non-physical entity. It's very much dependent on the physical, right? Like if you have two poles leaning against each other, they're very much dependent on each other. If you want to have them in that position, you have to have both, right? If you take away one, the other one collapses, and the other way around. Very much dependent. Does that mean they're the same? No. Likewise, our brain and our mind are like that. Very much dependent. Okay? Our coarse mind, especially the coarse mind that we use right now, very much dependent. Poke a needle somewhere, mind changes. Mind thinks up things, new connections are being made. So they're very much influencing each other. They're not the same. One is physical, one we can see, we can feel. Well, if you choose to kind of touch it, but never mind. So, one you can see, feel. The other one you cannot see, you cannot touch. It's non-physical. It's a different entity. But you see, that doesn't contradict it, that they're very much dependent on each other, nevertheless different. So understanding that they're different, therefore, something that is non-physical cannot give rise to something that is physical, in the sense that it cannot transform into something that is physical. Right? Something that is physical cannot transform into something that is non-physical. Let's take something physical. Physical objects, which we talk about physical, is like atoms, for example, subtle, like particles. Every particle must be preceded by a former moment of something material, physical, even if it's just energy. So if you ask me, was there something before the Big Bang? Of course! You can't have everything that came out of the Big Bang out of nothing. You must have a substantial cause. Here, substantial cause means the cause which transforms into that object. For example, a sprout. A sprout is a seed that transformed into the sprout. Of course, there was the sun, for example. The sun, that was a condition that also was responsible for the seed changing into the sprout. But the substance that changed into the sprout, that was the seed. That's substantial cause. So whatever is material must be preceded by some substance similar. Therefore, we can say material objects have no beginning. You cannot posit a beginning. You can't have out of nothing, one moment later, puff, you have like, I don't know, something material there. It's impossible. I think any scientist that you talk to would say that's impossible. Out of nothing, suddenly have an atom. Right? So, that being the case, you cannot trace back the first moment of physical objects. Impossible. There's always a physical moment before, something physical, even energy, whatever, but before the energy, there was always something. Now, if the physical is like that, and physical can only give rise to physical, non-physical, such as the mind, also has to be preceded by something non-physical. Right? So the mind has to be preceded by something. So there has to always be an entity, if there's an entity that's luminous and knowing, the definition of consciousness, luminous and knowing, that has to be preceded by a moment that is luminous and knowing. And that has to be preceded, and that has to be preceded, right? So, what can give rise to consciousness? Only consciousness. What can give rise to a material object? Only a material object. Other conditions can come in, but the actual substance that gives rise to that, in the case of consciousness, can only be consciousness. Now, our first moment of consciousness in this lifetime, it was not, the substance that gave rise to that was not the physical DNA of our parents. I don't think it was the mind of my dad and my mom kind of merging, coming together and making my mind. Right? I mean, that's like, my mind is quite different from my mom's and dad. So it's not like their mind suddenly got together and made my mind. So where does it come from? From a former moment of consciousness. Not my parents, but the continuum of my consciousness that was there before. The immediately preceding consciousness. Right? The immediately preceding condition. Because the first moment of my mind in this lifetime, it was aware, it was conscious. So it needed something that preceded it, that was also aware and conscious. And that must have been preceded by something that was aware and conscious. Right? Experiencing, perceiving, that entity. So, since beginning this time, we've had a mind. There's been mind. There's no beginning to our mind, just as there's no beginning to the atoms in our body. I mean, they came together as this body, but, you know, in a previous life, these atoms made up someone else's body. I mean, really, when I think about it, what I now call my body, they were someone else's atoms in different lifetimes. You know, they came together in this form, and that's now what I hold to be my body. But they came from different atoms, and there's no beginning to their continuum. Likewise, there's no beginning to the continuum of my mind, because there's always a preceding moment of awareness. That is the Buddhist explanation for past and future lives. And if there's in the past, then there's no reason for them not to continue on in the future. Because just as an atom cannot totally go out of existence, be there one moment and then totally disappear the next moment, well, the same can't happen with the mind. Anyway, that's just at the side. So how you can use this explanation here to establish the existence of past and future lives. On that note, let's go on for 3 more hours. No, I'm just kidding. So we've actually, I'm trying to finish everything that's in here, and we're doing quite well. So there's more explanation. I will repeat some of what we've done today. It will come up again. But please, if you do have the text, or if you, I think people need to share, so you could share it with someone and do some reading.
We've got enough.
You got enough. Okay, so there's enough text, so please do some reading if you can, if you find the time. And then, of course, very important are really the meditations. Everything I talk about now, if we don't take it to the degree of like looking inwards, then it's just words. It's just intellectual games. So this is the important part, and that's why often this is misunderstood, this sense of, oh, it's all complicated, observed object conditions, but to not, these terms, these terminologies that are used, object of engagement and so forth, these are just words, but to actually find what they refer to by utilizing our own mind. It's right here. It's the best object. It's not even we have to, buy something to actually experiment with it. No, it's right here. So to use our own mind and start looking. Any kind of emotion. What's the appearing object? What's the object of engagement? And that's the way we can understand this. And that's the way how study should be utilized to actually be put to a practical kind of use. Okay, anyway, so, let's continue. Oh, can you please? Sure. Should I say something? Oh, all right. Also, this course, it is only very short. I know you don't have much time. Of course, that's the only thing we can do. And this text is so, dense, and there's so much in it. I'm really, it's such a challenge to explain Lorik, the topic of Lorik, or mind and awareness, to you in such a short time. So what is very, very helpful is if you keep focused. If you have the ability in those couple of days to keep very focused on what we've been doing and keep your mind on it. And one of the main distractions is talking. That is the reason why, Рита and I decided to have silence. It's not easy. I understand some of you haven't met each other. They're all friends coming together. But still, to maybe just wait until the last moment, or, wait until this course is over, and utilize the time to just focus on what we've been speaking about by not talking, reflect on it again, attend the meditations, of course, and so be the least distracted. So that's why the silence is just so effective. So I'm trying to really practice. It's just 2 days, so it's not that hard. Okay. So, dedication, yeah, let's do the dedication. And then is there a meditation tonight? No, so there's that meditation.
בזכות חסד זה, page 18 sounds prepared. בזכות חסד זה, לא השיג במהרה את מצב הגורו בודה, ולא הוביל אל מצב זה את כל הנודדים עד אחד. בתודעת ההערה העילאית תקרת הערך שטרם נולדה תיוולד. לוזו שנולדה לא תתנוון ותגבר עוד ועוד. בארץ זו מוקפת רכסי הרים ושלגים, מקור הרווחה והאושר ללא יוצא מן הכלל. אבל לא תשבר הרב העוצמה תנזין דיאצו, לא תיוותר עד קץ הקיום.
Okay, so then there is another dedication prayer which is actually at the back and hasn't been distributed. Maybe you can distribute it very quickly. I'll just tell you how it came about, or maybe Geshe-ma is more suited to do that. This prayer was composed, I think, by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, because he really wants us to be aware how much we owe to the kindness and the courage of the Tibetans. And some of you might know at the moment there's a lot of Tibetan monks and nuns also who kind of burn themselves because they feel that the world has forgot about them. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche asked us just to really read that dedication prayer quite often. So I thought we could do every evening since we're quite a big group, and to really think, if it would not be for the courage of these people to whom the Buddha Dharma was so important, we wouldn't have it here. just to remember where it comes from, and also to really hope that the situation in Tibet will then become, you know, so that they can go back to their country and practice their culture and religion freely. That should then become the cause. If you could give me a punch. Okay, do you want to lead it?
No, you go ahead.
Remembering the kindness of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. The object of refuge of myself and of all transmigratory beings in all our lifetimes is the embodiment of the three jewels, the all-encompassing three refuges in one, the Guru, the wish-granting jewel, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Master Padmasambhava, the Dharma King, Somtsen Gampo and Trisong Detsen, the Abbot Shantarakshita, and the numberless holy beings who preserved and spread the Buddha Dharma in Tibet, and the Tibetan people who practiced and served Buddhism so faithfully for 1,000 years, as well as those who, along with many others, died sacrificing their lives for Tibet and His Holiness. May all their positive wishes be fulfilled immediately. Due to their limitless kindness, the sun of Tibetan Buddhism has now risen in the West, which is a dark land. But now that I've met with the Dharma, I have received the perfect human body, enabling me to lead a meaningful life. Our refuge and Savior, the Supreme One, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Tibetan people have been so kind to us. Remembering this, we make the following dedication prayers. May all His Holiness the Dalai Lama's wishes be successful immediately. May the snowland of Tibet achieve pure freedom and develop the Buddha Dharma even more than before in Tibet. And may all mother transmigratory beings achieve enlightenment. Thank you. So you can just fold it in half and put it into the prayer book where there's the dedications at that page. And you can just leave it in there. Thank you.
Those who want to take the text to the room and read it in the evening, you may take the text. Please bring it back with you. Please treat it with respect, just for study.